Well, it's great to meet you, Autumn. Thank you for taking a minute out for the show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I
You
really
bet.
appreciate it. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, it's great. I'm looking forward to it. So I'm curious, how much of living through this pandemic got you to a point where you're at now as a published poet, and how has it reverberated throughout your life up to this point?
Sure. I mean, the pandemic was awful. I mean, it's still kind of happening, but
Yeah,
that initial first year, I mean, it was bad. Just the transfer of wealth from regular people to the rich people is just awful, and all the sickness and the devastation that comes with that. But strangely, for people with disabilities, it's been a blessing. It's been bad too because more people have been getting sick, but it's been a blessing in many ways. Just the opening up of things digitally for people who can't get out.
yeah,
So all of the sudden, all of these places that were not accessible were there online. Um, so it's a huge gift in that. And I do remember after that first year when everything started to open back up again, businesses were wanting to shut that down, and this huge population were like, "You just proved you can do this. Don't stop. We
yeah,
still need that."
yeah.
So, like, I'll do church online even now. But then that was nice. And then counseling. I've done therapy online, and that wasn't really a thing before. And now it is. But even just like museums were doing digital things,
Yeah.
and like farmers markets, and a bunch of, not just Amazon, but a bunch of local places just
Yeah.
delivering things. And I was too sick at the time, but now like I do a book club online, you
Yeah.
know, and just a lot of things were like really opened up.
Yeah.
But the other thing that has been horrible is, so the illness that I have is called myalgic encephalomyelitis. Encephalomyelitis. Can't
Yeah.
say it even. But so it often is triggered by a virus. It can be triggered by other things, but it's just basically you get sick with something and then your body, like, it fights that off, but it's never fully recovered. You're just
Wow.
left weakened. So long COVID, it's the same. It's the same illness. If
Wow.
you have long COVID for long enough, it gets called what I have. Um, so a lot more people have what I have now,
Yeah.
which is awful. But it's been a very neglected illness as far as research and things like that goes. So there's been more awareness, there's been more studies, there's been more help in that way. Um, so yeah, the pandemic, horrible, awful things, but
Yeah.
good things too. Um,
That, that's interesting explaining that in that way, because I do know some people that have long-term COVID, and it's
mm,
like, wow. Like,
bad.
yeah, it's like, and that's the kind of the mystery of it too. It's interesting you talk about the disability community, because my son, who's going to turn 20 this weekend, is on the spectrum. And it really, when you said that, it opened up these doors that weren't open before to do therapy on, via virtual, because it was
Mm,
like we'd have to go through all of the stress, and he would go through the anxiety of getting ready for the appointment, getting in the car, driving there. They would talk to him for maybe 5 minutes, then the parents for the rest of the hour, and then he would be waiting around. So this way, it's just really streamlined and made it
mhm.
easier. There's a lot of things that are a part of that. A lot of accessibility to things too, like you said,
Yeah,
that should be around anyway. But
definitely.
so I'm curious, what was your dream growing up? Did you always want to be a writer? Was it always a part of your world?
Not a poet. I wanted to write books
Yeah.
since I was a small child. Um, the only book I ever finished, chapter book anyways, in its entirety, I wrote in the fourth grade. Every other book after that, beginning of a book, beginning of a book, beginning of a book. It
Okay.
just never. And then, I started writing poetry as a coping mechanism when I was pretty sick. And it was light bulb. It was like, this is the book I was supposed to be writing. These are the
Yeah.
books I need to be writing.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, I always wanted to write. I always wanted to have a family, which I do. I have six wonderful children, my husband and I do. And I always wanted to be a teacher.
Yeah,
So unfortunately, that won't happen as I'm too sick.
yeah,
I'm hoping that I'm very much trying to get better. I
yeah,
have statistically 5% chance of healing, and so I'm just insistent that I'm going to be there. So
yeah,
I'm consistent. Like I've gone through all the doctors, all the natural health things, and so many different treatments, but I'm not giving up. It's just like more research, more trying this, more trying that. Um, so I'm hopeful that one day there might be some version of teaching online to fulfill that goal.
yeah,
But just publishing that poetry book,
yeah,
holding it in my hand,
yeah,
actually, I have it right here.
yeah.
It's
Right
real.
on.
It's real.
Excellent.
It's like, oh my
Yeah,
goodness,
I
I did
know.
that.
I know. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting? My son has he has developmental delays, but it happened because he has one extra long arm on his 15th chromosome. And I'm thinking about what you're talking about. Like, I think science is going to get to a point where we can localize things
Mm,
and hopefully find some way of healing it or eradicating it, you know? I mean,
absolutely. And we have the technology, we have the studies, we have the intelligence. Just it's unfortunate that so much of medicine and research is tied up into money and
yeah,
profitability.
yeah,
So a lot of things that could be fixed by now aren't
mm,
because politics, money, whatever.
yeah,
But I think you're right, and eventually it'll happen.
yeah, yeah.
And especially now as people are like, we need to be doing this.
Uh-huh.
This
Yeah,
is important.
yeah.
So yeah.
So I'm curious in your journey as a poet, what was the first poem that you presented to somebody and got a reaction where you were like, this is what I need to be doing? You saw a sparkle in someone's eye.
Oh, that's a really good question. Um, I think so. I'm in a writing group,
Yeah,
and it's a marketing group, and we present our questions and get them answered and things. And I was so nervous. I had done an email for my newsletter. I wasn't publishing it yet, but I was getting it ready, and I was like, okay, I need you to look over my email, make sure it's good, make sure it's professional. And I had a poem in it,
yeah,
and I my marketing coach read it,
yeah,
and this one lady, she's a great author. She gave me a compliment. I don't remember her exact words, but it just it felt so good, and I was like, oh, that wasn't scary. No one was mean about it, and it felt validating.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing about our lives is that there's all these foundational seeds that are planted in us when we're kids. Take me back to where you were born and raised, and what would you say were foundational elements that were planted that made you eventually come to poetry, find this economy of words and a way of kind of therapeutically, you know, putting your words out there that heal people and heal yourself? How did all this happen?
I moved a lot as a child, always in the United States, but all over the country. And that has been a gift to me because I've seen different cultures.
Yeah,
They're all American cultures, but from the East Coast to the West Coast, North and South, wildly different cultures,
yeah,
different points of view. And so I've been able to consider things from different angles. And I feel like it's helped me be more open-minded,
yeah,
more loving, more kind. Um, Maybe a little bit of a misfit, and I don't really fit into any certain boxes. People are like, "Oh, you're this," and then they realize, "No, you're this," and then it's just like, "No, I like to find the good
yeah,
and embrace the good. I'm not going to embrace one culture." Um, so doing that, I feel like has made me more loving. Um, and I had my parents, they've been very good parents, and they both had really hard childhoods, and they broke those generational traumas to
yeah,
give us a better life.
yeah,
So I had that support, and I was, they really taught us to love people, not and not be judgmental, but also, I don't know, we moved a lot, and my dad especially loved nature. I write a lot of nature poetry. And so just, my brain formed on open-mindedness and goodness and love, beauty. So definitely all of those things I think contributed to me eventually writing poetry, although I never intended to. It
Sure.
just sort of fell in my lap.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm curious, aside from your parents, who's been kind of an inspiration, a heroic figure in your life that's inspired you to do everything and to finally publish your book?
Yeah. I would say, my marketing coach, so he's Derek Depker,
Yeah.
and he writes books. And I um I was looking around for help, and just it was all brand new, and I really like to research things and dive deep and figure out what's going on before I do anything. And his story was really inspirational,
Yeah.
of just how he had these other dreams in his life, and they didn't work out, and then he turned to writing, and he pushed through these obstacles, and he did it. And that was encouraging to me, to see, someone who had a different dream switch to something else and find success and happiness in it.
Yeah.
um and just so him and other people who I've met along the way, who are, self-published authors who found success and just living this dream. It's really inspirational, and it's such a great time to be a writer or be a poet. You
Yeah.
don't have to, I mean, it's great if you do find a publisher, but you don't have to wait for one,
Right.
you
Right.
know? It's
Yeah.
really wonderful how things are set up that you can get your work out there,
Well,
no matter where you are.
yeah. Well, and I think too, the way things have been happening, we're going through some pretty heavy times from the pandemic through all of these things that are affecting us, elections, everything that's going on in our society. There's so much to write about. I mean, there always is things to write about, but it seems like these are kind of Bob Dylan moments. There's real heavy things going on. So, yeah, it's
Yeah, new topics,
yeah,
new histories that we're living through.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So talk to me about your journey from going from the chapbook to the book. How did all of this from the beginning to you actually holding this book in your hand now? How did that happen?
Yeah. Um, the chat book was something I learned as a lead magnet to get people to join your newsletter. So it was being written at the same time as Clouds on the Ground, basically. And I sent Clouds on the Ground off to my editor. And when she sent it back to me, I sent her Waves, which is my chat book.
Yeah,
So it was kind of together. Um, but I released Waves first.
yeah,
And um, I did social media for 2 months before I published Clouds on the Ground, just to start to build an audience. So there was someone there to buy my book when it came out.
yeah,
Um, so the chapbook was cool. It didn't feel quite real because it's an ebook,
yeah,
but it's something. And then I did the book, and that was all sorts of surreal, really,
yeah,
but really great.
yeah,
So it was all together, all at the same time, all just this plan, this marketing plan that I learned,
yeah,
because I definitely did not know any of that stuff
uh-huh,
beforehand.
yeah.
But a really exciting journey.
Yeah. So what is the motivator for you every day to wake up? You have your family and kids and
Mhm.
you got your writing, but what is the ultimate motivator for you to get up and to do these things that you do and to see the world and capture it the way you do?
Hmm. Um, for me, I just sort of a base part of who I am is wanting to help people, wanting to put goodness into the world. So, I mean, definitely my family. That would be the ultimate reason. Poetry has been amazing.
Yeah.
It's definitely, it's something I can do while I'm sick,
Yeah.
and that's been wonderful. Um, that was something when I first became bedbound, I had a very hard time accepting that, and I felt useless. I wasn't doing anything. I was needing to be cared for.
Yeah.
And I had to come to this point within myself of seeing myself the way I see other people. Like everyone has value just because they exist. Because they're human, they're valuable.
Yeah.
And I had to see that within myself. And I did that before I started writing poetry. So it was hard for me to not be able to be out there doing good things and helping other people. So that is something, that keeps me going is what good can I put into the world? And I can do that. Like people have reached out to me and told me what my poetry means to them. And, some of what I've heard is just, I don't know. Sometimes there's just no words for how it
Right.
makes you feel.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful that I get to do it. So in this way, I can, spread around awareness of an illness that isn't well known,
Yeah.
and I can spread goodness with poetry. I wrote the book to be universal so people can look at it and sort of put themselves into it no matter what hard thing they're going through in their life, because there's so many hard things that people go through.
Yeah.
So that keeps me going is
Yeah.
helping people.
For sure. So, who's one of your favorite poets?
hmm Um, I would say definitely Mary Oliver.
Yeah.
I love her nature poetry.
Yeah.
I She's such an inspiration, and she broke molds, and she really prepared a way for more modern poetry
Yeah.
to be accepted and able to be put out into the world. So definitely love her work.
Yeah. For sure. So, I think I know what your answer might be here, but of everything that you've done in your life up to this point, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
Oh, my children.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. My son, he's gonna turn 18
Wow.
in just a few days. So
Yeah.
I know you said your son was about to turn 20, right?
Yeah. On December 8th.
Yeah. So yeah, I kind of in shock that he's about to be considered an adult.
Uh-huh.
I'm in denial.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But I don't know. I look at my kids and I love them so much. And
Yeah.
they're so talented and amazing. And I could just go on and on about my kids. They're
Yeah.
great people. They're good people, kind hearts. And
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, did, and my husband too, like our marriage, that's so important to me too. That's
Yeah.
up there, equal. And I'm just like, did we really raise them to be this amazing? Like
Yeah.
we love our kids so much. We just can't help it, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
I get it totally. So speaking of 18, let's say you had a dream tonight. You ran into the 18-year-old version of you, and you could give that young version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've lived, the wisdom you've accumulated. What advice would you give that young version of you?
Yeah. Um, I would tell myself to hold on and understand that I can't plan my life the way I intended to because I'm a planner.
Yeah.
And I had this all my dreams lined up, all neat and tidy in a row. But just to, let myself know life is going to change. There's so much good in it coming.
Yeah.
But be prepared for good things that you're not planning for, and
Yeah.
brace yourself for the hard things that you're not planning for. Because sometimes, expectations, right?
Uh-huh.
If you're expecting something to happen and it doesn't, it's very disappointing. If you're not expecting something that's hard, it hits you more. So
Yeah.
I don't know if other
Yeah.
people who are young can keep that flexibility.
Uh-huh.
You float through life a little easier.
Little easier. Yeah, I get it.
So,
Totally. So let me ask you this. Everyone out there has a perception of you. Family, friends, all of your fans that read your work, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
um, I think I'm a good person who tries.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect. I I honestly try my best. And if I were to die tomorrow, I would feel okay with that. I'd be like, I did my best. Um, when I do make mistakes, I try to correct them as best as I can. But I'm doing my best to raise my kids the best way that I can. Um, I'm seeing that they're kind people. So I don't know. I'm a flawed human being who tries to put good into the world.
Yeah, I get. So the most important thing here is Clouds on the Ground is your book. If anyone wants to pick up a copy, they want to reach out to you. I know I've already subscribed to your newsletter. How do they
Thank
do
you.
that?
Yeah. So to get Clouds on the Ground, that's on Amazon.
Okay.
But to get Waves, which is my free chat book, you just go to freechatbook.com. So it's easy to remember.
Yeah.
And you can sign up for my newsletter and get my chat book, and then there's news and updates there.
Okay, excellent. Autumn, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your story. It's so great to run into poets and to just to feel that joy of getting the words out there. So thank you so much for your story today.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been awesome. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
absolutely. It has.